Well, we had a week of optimism there before things came crashing back down to reality in a tough home opener loss for Toronto FC. My name is Mitchell Tierney. This is Waking the Red Weekly, presented by Footy Talks. And on today's show, we'll chat about the Red Bull match, the ups and downs of Toronto FC's young players, Domenico Crescito, Michael Bradley, and plenty more. First, of course, we've got Jeffrey P. Nesker, but we've replaced Michael's here. We've got Michael Leach of CityNews 680 joining us instead of Michael Singh, who will hopefully join us in a little bit here. But how are you guys doing this week?
Mike,
pretty good, thanks. How are you? It's tough. It's tough to fit into. It's tough to be slotted into the starting lineup to replace Michael here. He's going to have to sub me out as soon as he gets in.
Death match. I think a Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome kind of death match is my that's what I posit. Happy International Women's Day to everyone and all the women in everybody's life. I think it's important that we celebrate that. And then, basically crap on our boys in red for the rest of the hour and change. Mitch, I guess get us started because your first question is kind of the catch-all for everything here.
Well, I mean, it's funny that we are talking about subbing mics out because I think that's something that we'll be talking about throughout this show in terms of the Toronto FC captain. But yeah, I think we'll start with you, Mike Leach. Your thoughts and biggest takeaways from the home opener, because obviously it's early on in the season. We expected some tough transition with just the way this team is lining up, with the fact that they don't have their full roster in yet in terms of some of the investment they made this off season. But that's a pretty ugly way to start your home season, both in terms of everything, the pitch, the way it was looking, the play on the field. I mean, it just wasn't an ideal start, was it?
No, I mean, listen, not to be too critical. I thought in the first half they played all right. Like they started off strong. It's just those little mistakes, and the concern that we had going into the season was, how is the back line going to look? Well, when you turn the ball over in bad areas and you give up transition chances like that, that's going to be the book on how to play TFC right now, is let them possess the hell out of the ball, wait for them to make a mistake, and then just punish them in transition, because that's what the Red Bulls did, and we're very, very successful in doing it. So, I mean, listen, you take those turnovers away, and it's a young group. I thought the young players did all right. It was some of the other guys that I wasn't necessarily completely impressed with, but this is a work in progress, and they've said that all along. It's not the complete roster. I had someone ask me on Saturday what they could do at left back because Schaffelberg doesn't look like he's working out. I wouldn't close the book on Schaffelberg at left back yet, and I'm afraid they're probably going to have to continue on with Schaffelberg at left back because
have a choice.
The Crescito thing looks like that's not happening anytime soon. So they're going to have to try and find their way through and do what they can to survive. But I mean, in terms of the performance, outside of those really critical mistakes, I thought there were some good signs there, particularly from Luca Petrasso. That kid on the left, man, he looks good.
Yeah.
What? One of the just a quick follow up. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I mean, you want to flip for it? Paper, rock, scissors.
Yeah.
I said this on our post show Twitter Spaces, and you brought it up. It is a roadmap to beat TFC, but I would posit that not a lot of teams are going to be able to pull the Red Bull, right? Like, this might be an outlier because of the way the Red Bulls play. And yeah, it seems to be our kryptonite. Absolutely. But I wonder, can Chicago Fire actually, even feign to come in with that sort of a game plan and execute it? So we may be overreacting in that regard. This may be specifically, the Red Bulls have our number, and playing them is going to absolutely suck. The other is obviously somebody that doesn't follow you on the Twitter machine, because he's asking, what's with the Browns gear? Poor Mike, that's across the bear. And I don't even follow Pointy Eggball, but I know that every weekend.
I have passed it on to my children.
What?
I've been a Browns fan for more than 20 years, and it's All these crays. Yeah, that's not because of my kids, not because of my wife. It's because of the Browns.
Yeah. Now, Mitch, did I usurp what you were going to ask him?
Not really. I mean, I was more going to make a point in the sense that it was kind of funny because Bob Bradley was so praised for his removal of Chris Mavinga in the first match of the season at halftime because that wasn't working out, and then he starts this game without Toronto FC's arguably best transitional defender. So I wonder how much of an impact that will make when Mavinga, you would think, comes
Great
back
question.
in for the next match. Maybe I'll skip ahead to another one, and we'll just start with the back line in general. Like, how much do you change? Maybe even the 11 after a performance like this, or how much do you stick with the same thing against Columbus this weekend? Because, like you said, a lot of these guys are learning on the job, and you have to be afforded that opportunity to make these mistakes, or else they're never going to learn, and they're never going to get to the place where Toronto FC need them to be. And again, like you said, they do need them to get there because they've left themselves in a spot where they don't have much cover in some of these spots.
Well, I mean, for years coming into this year, I always had people going, "I'll play the kids, play the kids, play the kids, play the kids." Okay, that's cool. And I always said, you want to play the kids, that's fine. You're going to have to live with the kids' mistakes, and you're going to have to live with the kids growing on the pitch, and you're going to have to accept that those things are going to happen. I got concerns about this game coming up against Columbus because I think they scored 4 against Vancouver and 3 against San Jose. They can score goals, and they're going to put TFC's back line under pressure. But again, if you want to find out what you got with these kids, you got to throw them to the fire a little bit and see what happens, and let them try and learn and grow. Because the only way they're going to grow at this level is by getting out on the pitch and actually doing it. And I think to make massive changes in the 11, and they don't really have the roster to make massive changes at this point in time. But to make changes and start pulling guys out of the lineup and moving them all over the place, they don't get any continuity. They don't get comfortable in the positions that they're being put in. And number 2, you wreck their confidence. So you got to let them try and just play through this right now. And we always knew that this season was going to be, it was going to be a bit of a, you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days. And you mentioned the Red Bulls. Can this be, because they're such a different team to play, can other teams replicate what the Red Bulls do? Well, the Red Bulls put TFC's young guy, they put a lot of pressure on the ball. Mm-hmm. And when you do that, guys are going to make mistakes. That's where you're getting those turnovers, because there's pressure on the ball, and all of a sudden you got to start making decisions faster than maybe you otherwise would like to. And I think that's one of the things that did not concern me, but I kind of looked at that TFC had a ton of possession, but there wasn't a ton of possession with purpose. I think they only ended up with 4 shots on target. They're like the possession, the ball wasn't moving fast enough, and that allowed Red Bulls the opportunity to get up on the ball in certain positions, and it made things difficult for TFC. Can other teams replicate that? We'll find out. But that's certainly, that blueprint is out there now. Put pressure on some of those young players, and they might make some mistakes.
Yeah, just before, obviously, hello, Mike Singh. Welcome back to the show.
What's up? What's up, Mike?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, Mike Leach, and trust me, we are going to get to the pre discussed questions that I know you want to ask. But there have been a lot of calls on the spaces today on WTR, is in article comments, myself included. Why are we not playing a back 3? Why aren't we playing a 3-5-2 or a 5-3-2? And I think you hit the nail on the head. We have to be okay with them making mistakes, especially 2 games in and switching. I mean, has Bob Bradley ever in his managerial career played as negative a formation as a 5-3-2? I don't think so. But my question is this. Is Michael Bradley the 6 that we need in this system, and is Pause the 8 that we need in this system? Because based on a very small sample size, it would suggest that the answer is no to both.
I saw some analysis saying that they thought that Bradley played well on Saturday. That's not what I saw. I didn't see that energy. I didn't see that taking charge in midfield that we typically see from him. I thought Pozuelo was okay, but Bradley's play, I think, concerned me a little bit more than anything else. It just seemed off more than anything else, and I don't know whether that's what we should expect from him because every player has off days. I just didn't think he had that sort of Michael Bradley grind to his game. I thought there were some really sloppy mistakes, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I would even posit that it's an unfortunate circumstance that Daddy Bradley's system requires a 6, like a Tyler Adams or a Darlington Nagbe, and he's never been that player ever. He's never been that black hole that sucks all attacks. He's never been that destroyer 6. He's much more of a regista, like a Pirlo kind of player, a deep lying playmaker. And that's tough. That's a really tough situation. Mike, you got a question for Mike?
Yeah, for sure. But just let me comment. Like you called Pozuelo an 8 there. Am I the only one that's seeing him play more as a 10 in this system? Because that's what I've seen out of him.
I mean, you're fair. I would call him a hybrid 8-10. I mean, obviously he's not getting the free role that he had the first couple of years, but and an 8 has a lot more defensive responsibilities for a 10. I think maybe that's why I'm harping on the 8. But by all means, if I'm wrong, now's your opportunity to put me in my place.
Yeah, no, it's fluid out there, so it's obviously changing all the time. So I just see Bradley and Ozo lining up there as sort of the 6s/8s. Bradley obviously staying back a little bit more, and then Paz still as that number 10. But as you mentioned, that free roll is no longer really there. He's kind of trying to play more centrally, which hasn't been his game the last couple of years. And I tweeted out, I thought he started the match unreal. A couple of his touches in tight areas of the pitch, keeping the ball, that was all fantastic. And I thought he looked like Toronto FC's most dangerous player moving forward, as he probably should, as someone who is Alejandro Pozuelo and the talent that he possesses. But what I want to get your take on there, Mike, was the play down the right wing. And I'm not sure if you guys touched on this already, and that's Jaquil and Jaden. Kind of interesting to see Bob Bradley start 2 youngsters. Yeah, I was for it at the beginning of the game. I was excited because this is something, we've been talking about a lot. But what was your takeaway from that match, and what do you think those 2 guys learn from an experience like that against the Red Bulls?
Well, I mean, I mentioned it before. I actually wasn't too disappointed with the play of some of the young guys. I got kind of what I expected out of them. I know people were saying it was a bit of a step back for Jaquil in some respects from the performance in Dallas, and maybe it was. I thought he was okay, and I really like Jaden Nelson. I really like him. I thought he did everything right until he got to the final touch.
Yeah,
the final touch seemed to elude him a little bit, but that's something I think that will come with time. And this is the thing. This is the thing that we were talking about. Is with these guys, you're going to have to give them time to work through some of these things. They're not coming out of the box finished products. You're going to have to give them a little bit of space and leeway to make some mistakes and learn from those mistakes in order for them to improve. So the result, and this is, you asked my opinion of the game was, yeah, they got blown out 4-1. And it was a miserable day. I know people who left at halftime because it was cold. But it's one of those games where you throw the result out. The performance was better than what the result would indicate. It's just cleaning up some of those little things, some of those little errors that particularly young players make. And all of a sudden, you don't turn over the ball in some of those spots, and it's not a 4-1 game.
Yeah, Chris here saying Chris here. Sorry, go ahead, Mitch.
I was going to say it's also like a change in mentality too, as these young guys move from position to position. Like one of the things I see with both Schaff and JMR is when they lose the ball, they have that winger's tendency to try and close down immediately and win the ball back. When you're a fullback, you can't do that in the same way. You have to pick your spots and back off a little bit and let the other guys cover for you, because there's no one behind you who can win that ball back if you miss that initial aggressive tackle. So there's little things like that they're going to have to tweak as well. Another thing that I'm finding interesting here, obviously, is just the change in narrative in Canadian soccer right now around these young guys. Whereas in the past, there was pressure on young players because Canada was looking for that one shining star to lead the program forward. And now that they have that, everyone's measuring them against that guy. And I mean, it's not fair to Jaquil. It's not fair to Jaden. It's not fair to like a bunch of these young guys, but that's the way things are right now, is everyone wants to find the next Alfonso.
And life isn't fair. I'm just going to put that that little Debbie Downer.
I don't know that you're going to find the next Alfonso. He's a pretty special player.
He's generational. I mean, like, let's look at...
That's a lot of pressure to put on someone to say, oh, yeah, you need to come in and be the next Alfonso Davies. No, just come in and be the first you.
Yeah.
Hey, I love that.
Wow, yeah.
Let's get that on a
Beautiful
t-shirt.
life advice.
Yeah, that was wonderful. That's poetry. All right, Mike, let's talk pitch, because I know you and I have we've had a little bit of a precursor to this. And I know that you have been privy to some of the screaming hot magma takes over the last weekend. So let's set the table. I mean, you've done a bit of digging, so let's set the table. Let's talk fungicide, let's talk runway, let's talk weather. If you want to set the table for us.
Okay, so every time, and I haven't been to trading. It's just the price of gas right now is keeping me away from training more than anything else. I saw the pictures that were posted from training last week, and I went, "Oh, here we go again."
Mm-hmm.
And the question was brought up to Michael Bradley about the field, and frankly, his answer concerns me. It doesn't concern me, but it kind of raised a red flag for me. Is he said we've talked about it too much over the years, but we still haven't come to a solution. Well, the next solution, I can tell you the next solution, and no one wants to hear it, is that grass, that hybrid comes out and they put in an artificial turf. And my mentions fill up every time the field becomes an issue with the Argos out thing. Guys, the Argos aren't leaving. They aren't. Mm-hmm. They're owned by MLSE. MLSE operates the stadium. MLSE is not. No one is paying to build a new stadium for the Toronto Argos because, frankly, the Toronto Argos. How do I be diplomatic about this? Like, they can't
just say frankly the Toronto Argos, and everybody understands.
You're almost better to go. The Argos would almost be better off playing their home games up at York University. Like, that stadium is actually probably more along the lines of what they need than BMO Field. And that's no disrespect to the Argos. It's just they aren't drawing fans into the building. And I get that. But MLSE paying the bills at the stadium, they want to get as many events as they can in the stadium. The Argos aren't leaving. So if the pitch is that much of a concern, we've done the grass. It didn't work. We've tried the hybrid. For the most part, the hybrid has worked. Like, it's been fine. There were points last season where it didn't look great. But then again, last season was weird in that the Argos started their season really late, and you had a bunch of games there in a short span of time. I totally get that.
Yep.
Neil Davidson's article, he spoke with Robert Heggie, who is the chief groundskeeper for Toronto FC and Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. He said the issue with the field, and he's told me, I've spoken to him, he's told me the Argos don't help. Like, let's be very clear, the Argos don't help. Nothing there helps. Like, TFC2 playing there would not help. You want to keep as few events on the grass as you possibly can. I get that. He said the weather this year, there were two things. There was a lot of snow, and they didn't have the access or the ability to use the amount of fungicide that they needed to use to keep this fungus that is like the snow is a catalyst for its growth.
Absolutely.
they didn't have the ability to do that. The weather didn't help them also in the amount of wind that we've had. And it's been windy as hell this winter. When the wind gets up above 30 kilometers an hour, you can't use the grow lights because the grow lights will blow away and break. So there's a couple of things working against them there, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, and I also heard over the last few days that there were some film crews that were working at the stadium. I can't verify that. I don't know anything about that. But if that's the case, none of that helps. And it's money, I'm sure, because those crews are paying to be there.
Mhm.
But the question is, if you're going to have those crews in there and they're going to cause that kind of damage, and that damage was down in that south end more than anywhere else. If that's where that's like, if that's a reason, then
You're speaking my language, Mike. I
kind of question the priorities there. The priority, I know you want to make money, but if you're putting you're paying millions of dollars for these guys. Like it's like asking a Rolls Royce to run on like regular unleaded gas.
100%.
Like
100%.
You know, if you're gonna invest that kind of money in your players, you might want to put the investment into the field too to make sure that they've got the best playing surface to play on. And it was mentioned on the TSN broadcast, like the pitch is not conducive to the way a Bob Bradley team wants to play. They like to keep the ball on the ground and move it around that way. If the pitch is all, and it was even in the spots that didn't look bad, you could see the ball bobbling around a lot and getting some bounces. It's not good, but I mean, it's also March. In Toronto, no grass is going to be great right now. So hopefully in the next few weeks, and there's another issue. It seems like TFC gets front-loaded home schedules every year. And I know some people at MLSE say they want that. I don't get that. Why are we playing home games, as many home games as we are, in the months of March and the beginning of April? Like, backload some of those into the summer, if you can.
If you can,
but
yeah.
Then you get into an issue with the Argos again. So
yeah, you do. Chris Fung raises an interesting point. You know, they should invest in a transportable grass surface that can be protected, like Arizona does with their football stadium. Unfortunately, we are enthralled to FIFA right now with respect to getting this thing shipshape for World Cup 2026, and they have a laundry, 1 through 100 of the top priorities. A tunnel for the VIPs to get from parking without mingling with the riffraff is probably number one. But
that's how we're getting to the game, boys.
So we're pooched. We're pooched in that respect, right? We're not putting down turf, and I think people have to realize, one, the Argos aren't going anywhere, like you said, and two, it's March, guys. It is what it is. Not getting the fungicide wasn't a money issue. It was a supply issue predicated by the fact that we're still kind of in a global pandemic that's kind of wreaking havoc on global supply chains, and compound that with the bureaucracy of our government at all three levels with respect to importing and exporting fungicide. It became triage, and we just didn't get as much as we wanted. So let's put that to bed. I think we start putting we start pushing the panic button. If Lorenzo comes and the pitch still looks like that, but at the end of the day, like Anfield has the same kind of grass surface as we do, and their goal mouths are dead, and they get 10 times the attention paid, and that's simply from action in football matches. So I really do think we need to adjust our metrics here, our ceiling and floor for what pitch. I just think that we're being a bit too unreasonable, and I imagine we all agree there.
Mike Singh, do you have any questions on this week's edition of Botany Weekly?
Horticulture Weekly, boy. And get ready, because my second question is another 20-minute dissertation. So maybe
to the question that was asked about the Arizona Cardinals, the grass, the transportable grass. The Las Vegas Raiders do the same thing at Allegiant Stadium in Vegas. Those fields are transportable. That's correct. They're on tracks. They actually move them out into the parking lot, and that's fine. one thing you do have to remember about Glendale, Arizona, and Las Vegas, Nevada, you get way more sun, and it doesn't get nearly as cold.
You're 100% right. Yeah. Where are we going to put the grass? Like in the international center?
I mean, and this is like, this is an issue. This is an issue with the NFL because J.C. Treader of the Cleveland Browns is the National Football League Players Association president. He penned an article. It actually came out after Odell Beckham did his ACL in Cincinnati on turf in 2020. And then Beckham does it again on turf in the Super Bowl at SoFi Stadium, a $5.5 billion stadium. $5.5 billion, and they put down artificial turf. And no one wants this stuff because it's even NFL football players, because of the cuts and all that stuff, guys are getting hurt. The problem that they're having is with some of the stadiums, like they're talking, as a Browns fan, they're talking about the stadium's only 20 plus years old, but they're talking about replacing First Energy Stadium in Cleveland. And what do you replace it with? Because they want more events in the stadium. First Energy Stadium has 10 Browns games a year, plus a handful of concerts. It's not enough to keep a building like that profitable. They want conventions. They want more concerts over the winter. They want the NCAA Final Four. They want all those things. So then it gets into the field, and the idea was the same thing. You could have this field, this grass that is grown elsewhere, and it's, the grass, it's going to be it's not just an issue for us. The climate is not really conducive to it. So
exactly,
maybe you move the pitch south for the winter. Maybe you make it a snowbird and send it to Florida
with a bunch of helicopters or a system
to live on the beach
and nets.
Send it to Clearwater Beach with an umbrella.
Yeah, exactly. I will say this: I've been sitting on a witty retort for about 2 minutes. You said, "What do we replace the first Energy Stadium with?" And I'm like, "The second Energy Stadium." But now I'm late on the joke. So let's
need to come back up.
But I'll be here all week, boys. I'm just moving ahead because let's get the second one over with. MLS on TV in the US, Canada. This is the other thing that we talked about as a precursor. You have some interesting ideas on what it takes. And I sort of countered with, as long as MLS 90% of their ESPN games, and I'm not talking about ESPN Plus, the OTT server, I'm talking about terrestrial cable, whatever that means. ESPN3 is a graveyard in the United States. It's like a value-added channel that has that ticker that gives you your sports stats on the bottom. You see how TSN tries to approximate it. That's a big issue for market penetration, and I think that has to be the priority above and over and above any of this, where are we at in terms of the Raptors. But I thought it was really interesting how much resistance you got on the Bird app with those figures, the Raptors and TFC sort of being very, very close together, in terms of numbers over the last little while. Was that even a question?
Well, the season opener in Dallas, TFC drew 154,000 on TSN in the afternoon. The Raptors were playing Saturday night going head to head against the Maple Leafs, and I think it was against the Atlanta Hawks, which is not the Hawks have Trae Young, but I don't think that's not a marquee matchup. They only got 167,000. Now, fast forward to week 2, I just looked at those numbers. 57,000 viewers for TFC New York Red Bulls.
Oh, wow.
That's not good. That's not good.
Halftime.
The Vancouver New York City game actually got a much better rating than the TFC Red Bulls game. And I don't know whether that has anything to do with the matchup. I know a lot of people like to say every TFC fan is down at the stadium on a home game, and those numbers actually kind of play into that idea. So, and the Raptors, I think, drew 280,000 on Sunday against the Cavaliers. That was a good matchup, though. That's like the Cavs are sneaky good. Like people don't realize
they're a Cleveland team. So I see your bias. Your bias is showing, Mr. Cleveland.
I'm sure the Raptors, but I do like.
Okay.
I love Evan Mobley. And I'm if Mobley and Barnes sort of continue on the trajectory that they're on, I'm all in on that. So the Waking the Red is turning into a Waking the Raps here.
I mean, these sound like the
So-
names of basketball players to me. I'm going to take your word for it, though. So what's the solution then, Mike Leach? Like, do we wait for the Insigne bump, or is it time to be concerned because the league is pursuing a new media deal, and these numbers are very important.
Yeah, they are important, and Insigne will present a bounce. I don't know. I'm trying to think of what else was on because I was working at the time, so I think there was a hockey game on at the time, but Saturday afternoon in March might be a little bit of a dead spot. But I really like, other than promote it, cable hurts. Like cable hurts. Although I think the Leafs drew basically the same number. They were on Sportsnet only on Saturday night. They weren't on the CBC, so they weren't over the air. They were on cable. They did well, but that's the Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
They're almost,
undroppable.
I don't know. Like, I mean, I didn't see a ton of promotion. There was a lot of promotion from TSN going into the game in Dallas. Like, if you watched anything on TSN or even on CTV, there was a lot of promotion. There wasn't a ton of promotion going into the home opener against the Red Bulls. Yeah. So that may be part of it. I mean, part of it is we got to tell the stories. Like and I saw someone say, I'm way more interested in watching Burnley West Ham game, or like just pick two sort of middle of the road teams for the Premier League because there are way more storylines. I'm going, no, there aren't way more storylines. The Premier League has a massive, monstrous PR machine that churns out those storylines, and they have people who are willing to tell those stories. The problem with MLS, and I can, like, in my job, I have to decide what do I cover and where, and how do I do this? Like, local is always most important to me. So TFC is always in the conversation, and I've had fights with people over this. I will pick TFC or even the Argos over some U.S. games, because the U.S. basketball games don't draw 40, 50,000 in some cases on TV. But going into the season opener, I go live. The person that does the morning in front of me does everything on tape, so maybe we'll go through and listen to all of their reports. There was not one mention of TFC's season opener against FC Dallas in the morning. And I'm like, how is that? Because that was my lead story. And the home opener on Saturday was my lead story because it's a Toronto team. It's important. It matters. And then, because we default to Leafs lead all the time. Yeah. I think that's boring. And I don't think that's right. When TFC's got a home opener at 2 o'clock and the Leafs are playing regular season game 62 or whatever it is on a Saturday night, as a breaking news station and a happening now station, let's get what's happening now on the air first, and then we'll deal with the other thing later. But I mean, there aren't enough people like me out there in the media that actually will push the MLS narrative forward, and that's part of the problem. And that's I put out the question there on Saturday night or Sunday night after watching. I'm sorry, I'm going into the weeds a little bit here. I watched the Austin Miami game, and I watched the LAFC Portland game. Both of those atmospheres were fantastic. The Charlotte game, the 74,000 at Bank of America Stadium. That was like a college football. It was. I watched college football. That was like a college football game in how the energy in that stadium. And I'm going, this is here. Like there's something here. Why aren't mainstream media outlets like mine and ESPN and TSN, and why aren't they paying more attention to it? And I mean, I got a million and one different answers. Mostly comes back to the American mentality of it's not the best, so we're not going to pay attention to it, which is unfortunate.
The
It's
usual.
not the same quality as the Premier League, but there's quality there.
Yeah, and it's also, soccer is not a high-scoring game. It's a complex game of nuance where you have to appreciate a midfield battle over, the ping-ponging of points, and the fact that it's kryptonite for advertisers because there's no place to put your commercials other than halftime and pregame and postgame, right? And that is sacrosanct.
Well, it's a double. It's a double-edged sword because there aren't places to put ads, and with the ratings so low, those ads aren't going to sell for much.
Yeah,
so it almost becomes like a
self-fulfilling prophecy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mike, you want to follow it up with something that isn't talking about TV viewership numbers?
Let's go back and let's talk some footy that actually occurred on Saturday, and of course let's go back to the TFC game. Jesus Jimenez. He bagged his first goal as a Toronto FC MLS player. What did you make of his performance? And with Ayo Akinola returning to training this week, how does that sort of look? How do you foreshadow that competition there up top? And what do you think of Jimenez so far?
Those touches that he put on that goal, that's some skill that we don't typically see, and ability to move with the ball. I thought he looked really good, and I think he's looked pretty good in what I've seen of him. As far as Ayo goes, I don't know if you can move two up top, but it might be tough for him to get on the field. I mean, there's certainly going to be competition there for sure.
Yep.
Jimenez looked really good to me. I'm really impressed with him. Even in the preseason stuff that I saw, he looked really, really good.
Yeah, Jimenez has and can play as a wide attacker too, so that might be an option that they look at, especially before Lorenzo Insigne gets in here, where they can put him as a wide and Ayo through the middle. So I wonder if we get a couple looks at that as well,
because they're still looking for that option on the right wing, because the first game DeAndre Kerr didn't work out. Achara I thought looked decent when he was kind of spit out there, but it doesn't seem like Bob Bradley's too keen on starting him right now. And then when you shifted Jaden over to, I guess, his unnatural side, even though he can play that position, I don't think he was at his best. Luka was great on the left. Jaden was great on the left the game before. So I think the left wing is going to be fine, especially when you have someone who's pretty decent at that spot coming in the summer. So the question mark,
he's going to be amazing at left wing. Yeah.
The question mark is there at the right wing, right? So if Jesus can I guess fill that spot, then
if Jesus can save,
yeah. There you go.
I was waiting for that.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to do a Big Lebowski joke, but I don't want to swear on names, so I'll save that for later.
All right. Well, I think we'll let Mike Leach go here.
We've had him for 40 minutes, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we overstayed our welcome a little bit, but thanks for joining us off the top this week. And it's always great to talk some TFC with you, Mike.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. It's a lot of fun. Always fun talking footy.
Amazing, man. We'll see you next time.
And pitches and all the other stuff.
Yeah. Next time it will just be me and you, and we'll bore each other out. We'll do like an 18-hour long-winded dissertation on TV viewership numbers, and by the end there'll be one viewer left.
And we'll do a full grass manicuring and segments
with dioramas. Like, I'll make animations. Yeah. Oh man, can't wait! Cannot wait! All right, Mike. We'll see you later, buddy.
Grounds crew, eh?
Take it easy. Have a good day, guys.
Cheers.
All right, later, Mike.
All right, boys.
Cool,
let's. Yeah. Always love talking to him. First in the rundown, TFC gets wrecked in the home opener. Have we taken that to its logical conclusion, or do we have any further thoughts on the 4-1?
Well, I'll start, and for me, the writing was kind of on the wall for something like this to happen. I think we got really excited seeing the TFC in preseason. come away with some results. We got really excited after coming away with a point in Dallas. But to me, realistically, like in that game against Dallas, I thought we probably should have been down a couple goals early. I think Dallas missed a couple sitters. So I think realistically, I don't know if TFC were really in that game and they came with a point. I don't know if they necessarily truly deserved. And then come back out and look, this roster, as we've all talked about, is still very much a work in progress. And when you're starting, I don't know, 4, 5 kids in typically, I guess, unnatural positions, it's there. I mean, the writing, like I said, is on the wall once again. And I think the Red Bulls are also really, really good this year.
Yeah.
We talk about them talk about TSC dominating possession and them looking good in possession. Well, that's by design. I've watched a lot of Red Bulls over the last couple of years, and really even this season. Their first game against San Jose was the same thing. I think San Jose had about 64% possession to the Red Bulls 30-something, and Red Bulls came away with a 3-1 victory that day too.
Wow.
So it is by design the way the Red Bulls played, just handing over the ball and capitalizing on the transition. And Mitch, I think you made a really good point about Jaquil and Jacob learning when to back off a little bit. That's something Bob Bradley touched on after the game. And in particular, I believe it was the third goal when Jaquil tried to win the ball right away. Maybe it was a foul, but sometimes when you don't get that call, you get burned as the last guy. And I thought maybe he could have backed off a little bit there and perhaps played that a little bit differently, or be more aggressive when you're going in. He was kind of hesitant there, but I thought Jaquil was fine. Learning moments, be a little bit tighter on your man, learn how to defend a 2-on-1 when you kind of get left out to dry, learn how to defend that 1-versus-4 situation. But on the ball, I mean, he's fantastic. This guy is.
Yeah, I would add maybe not dribble in the box that you're defending, like maybe just hoof it out of there sometimes. But yeah.
I mean, personally, I think I challenge him to do stuff like that because I think he has the potential, and you're gonna make mistakes. But this guy can keep the ball better than most people on this Toronto FC team right now, and I think he showcased that. I thought he's able to dribble inside, which is not something you see very often from a young player. He's able to dribble outside when he needs to. And Jaden, I thought, gave away the ball far too cheaply in this game. And when you're playing on alongside a guy like Jaden Nelson and you're at right back there, that's your outlet for Jaquil. So every time he kind of moved it up to Jaden, I thought the possession was given away too cheap. But I thought Jaden showed flashes of kind of what we get so excited about for him. And he beat one guy, beat two guys.
Yeah.
But then he tries to beat the third guy, and you're like, okay, I think at that point you kind of have to reassess and release the ball there. There's one time he did that, cut a guy inside, cut another guy inside, and then looked up, saw Jesus making a run through the channel. Instead, he tries to beat a third guy and loses possession in the midfield. So just little things like that. I think that's been his biggest problem, is knowing when to dribble and when to release, and kind of evolve as a soccer player there overall.
God, it reminded me of someone. I can't quite put my finger on who it reminded me of with the endless dribbling and the step overs, but it really did remind me of somebody. He's not smiling, Mike. He's can we talk about?
I lost you for a sec.
Oh, I was talking about how, you know what? I'm just going to leave it. We'll talk after the show. Luka, why did they put Luka's a natural fullback? So can we talk about why Luka got the start further up? I mean, he was great. He was my man of the match. But what kind of, was that a little galaxy brainy to maybe put him as an attacking option and Schaff as a defending option? I mean, I think we're clear on we got to let Schaff and JMR run through the paces, and there's going to be more games than this where they don't quite work, and we maybe have to hold off on the no, Bob, let's do a 5-3-2 like you've never done ever in your career ever, because we're scared.
Are you criticizing the one thing that worked in the entire tactical?
No, I'm not. I'm just saying it seems weird to me. Like, it worked, but it seems weird to me on paper. Like, when that lineup came out, everybody was like, "What's going on? Where the hell is Luka playing, and where is Schaff playing?" Like, it did our head in. And then to see how it was realized on the field felt a little galaxy brain, regardless
I
of
mean,
how
in our mind, Jeff, like he could be just a left back. But the first time I spoke to Bob Bradley, he said that he could be a midfielder.
Okay.
And that was the first time I spoke to him. So it's not like he all of a sudden came up with the idea on Saturday afternoon. I think this is something we all saw in the player. And I think during that preseason game, I think it was against Chicago when he came on and he was started as a left back, was playing higher up the pitch. You could see his attacking quality, and that was on full display on Saturday. So, I mean, as Chris said, I thought he was way better at left wing than he was at left back. And I wholeheartedly agree with Chris there. I thought Luka was probably the best player for Toronto FC in that first half. And I'm interested to see, I guess, how they use him going forward. But as a whole, on Saturday, I mean, guys, like, we get carried away sometimes with these expectations. There are going to be growing pains. TFC have a lot of moves coming, and the plan is to make this group a lot better, and they have to. So there are going to be times where, hey, you come away with the result like they did on Saturday. I don't think anyone expected to be perhaps that ugly, but credit also to Lewis Morgan, who took 2 absolutely beautiful goals to obviously kind of demoralize TFC there. But I still think that there's a lot to like in this group when you dive into things. And come the summertime, when they bring in a couple more bodies, I mean, there's a plan in motion here, and it's just, can they get to that summer? That's the biggest question. So I wouldn't be hitting the panic button yet. I wouldn't be calling for anyone's heads yet. This is still early in the year, and it's still earlier in the year, and I think that this group will honestly be fine.
Yeah.
Speaking of the plan, I'm going to do a segue now, Mitch. Here we go. Speaking of the plan, how much does Dominique Crescito's change of heart with respect to his estimated time of arrival alter said plan?
Well, it's interesting because when I first heard about the move, the plan was always the summer. This is Genoa's captain. He is kind of like Lorenzo Insigne. He wanted to be there to help Genoa out of the relegation battle. Obviously, the last 2 months he's been sidelined with the calf injury, and also he had COVID.
Oh, great.
So he was unlucky, I guess, in that regard. But the whole time I was hearing that he would be joining TFC in the summer. And now when news broke that he would be coming in March instead, I kind of wondered what was happening there. So I wonder if anything actually did change, or if this was the plan all along to kind of revisit this move in the summer. I still think at the end of the day, this deal gets done and Crescito does become a Toronto FC player. I was told when it was first happening that this was a package deal with Lorenzo Insigne, and perhaps it'll actually literally come as a package this summer when his contract is up.
I mean, sorry, go ahead. Mitch, I keep interrupting you. I'm going to stop talking. Go.
It's all good, man. Speaking of that left side, though, I wanted to ask about, because we're getting a lot of comments about it, Jacob Schaffelberg, and obviously a player who left the field injured during that home opener. Is there any update on him, and maybe if he'll be available for the weekend?
You know, TFC's training at BMO Training Ground, and I actually did not get out to training today. So I do not have an update for you guys right away, but we'll try and get one by the end of the week. So keep it locked.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Axis of Evil. Let me just interject here. I don't get why Michael keeps saying we need to be patient. I don't really see people panicking. I mean, tell me you're not on the Waking the Red boards without without telling me. People are just pointing out what they see. Don't be overprotecting. There's a point somewhere in there, Axis, and we love you for being so contrary, but people are definitely panicking, my friend. Whether it's this idea that Bob has to suddenly become a coach that doesn't adhere very, very, very close to this 4-3-3 or nothing, or basically consigning Schaff and JMR to the delete bin based on 2 performances. I do think that there's a lot of knee-jerk reactions that are circulating around there. Even just sort of the pleas to be more measured on this JMR hype train from pundits all around CanSockland. People are definitely panicking, and I think that that's a little bit of PTSD from last year, and the expectation that we were going to be better than we are right out of the gate. So I would counter that Mike is definitely being a lot more measured than you give him credit for.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I spend too much time reading Twitter, the Wake and the Red boards or whatever it is. But I definitely do see um, some panic out there from Toronto FC
Yeah.
fans, and I think, I mean, deservedly so. I don't know if they deserve any praise. Obviously, on Saturday, I like I said, I think those matches are going to happen. But Jeff, you keep mentioning the 4-3-3, and man, I keep going back to this. I'm not seeing a fluid 4-3-3 out there.
No, not at all. But let me refine it to say, I don't think Bob Bradley is going to be playing as negative a formation as a 5-3-2 off the back of this loss to the Red Bulls.
Sure. Yeah, I think Bob Bradley's capable of playing a lot of different formations that he sees fit. But at the end of the day, I think we have to, at least in my opinion, you have to set this team out and develop them in the way that you envision. And if that comes the summer when Lorenzo Insigne arrives and they play a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1, whatever it is, then train your guys that way. And between now and the summer, the way that I'm perceiving it is it's almost like training sessions out there. You're going to have those bumps. You're going to have those slip ups. You're going to have those moments where you're like, oh, what the hell happened?
Yeah.
But it's all, I mean, let's go back to this Philadelphia 76ers. Trust the process, man. Let's trust the process and let's see if this actually plays out the way that Bob Bradley envisions, because he does not have his stamp fully on this team yet.
And
Chris,
the good news,
Chris, I'm taking this from your new article, which I edited before we we started the show today. So yeah, I already don't like it, buddy.
Well, the good news with Bob Bradley is he's got time, I think, more than if you go back to last year with Chris Armas and even Javier Perez, these were both guys who knew pretty much they were on the hot seat. Bob Bradley's going to have a little bit more time to do some of these experiments, and just given the reputation that he brings in and given the investment that the club's made in him and the dual positioning that he has, he's going to have just a little more leeway to be able to play some of these young guys and to be able to go through some of these growing pains that are going to be necessary to get this club to where he hopes it's going to be and where we all hope it's going to be come, realistically next year. I mean, I don't want to write off the season completely, and we're definitely not doing that, but this is a year of learning, and next year will be the year when the expectations ramp up. But that little bit more leeway, I think, is critical for Bradley, and I think it's going to pay dividends down the road as some of these young guys get more and more opportunity, and results aren't the be all end all, at least in this part of the year.
Exactly, and I still think they do compete this summer. Based on the potential that they have to make sort of some moves that I'm hearing they want to make, I do think they find a way to kind of turn the ship around in the summer. And let's not forget that the summer isn't the halfway point of the Major League Soccer season. The summer is about a third of the way. So if they can get to that point, pick up a couple results here and there, still be in the mix to make the playoffs, don't rule this team out to get hot come the summer and kind of push forward from there. But it might be a painful experience to get there. It might not. They might turn this ship around and start playing better than they have been to start the year. But I think the writing's on the wall for sort of these type of performances.
Yeah, no, I think we're definitely patience is something we don't preach often on this show, but something that
well, speaking of patience, Richie Larea. See what I did there?
Very nice.
Yeah, go ahead. Set the table, Mitch.
Well, of course, rumors suggesting throughout the week that he could be considering a return to Toronto FC on loan from Nottingham Forest, where he has yet to appear. He was in the 18 for their FA Cup game against Huddersfield yesterday that they actually won. So they're playing Liverpool coming up in the FA Cup. I mean, the reason for not doing this, among other things, was literally on the bench for the New York Red Bulls during this game, and the Caden Clark and how much the Red Bulls had to pay to get Caden Clark back. Richie Larea would have to go through the exact same process to return to Toronto FC. And I mean, I wanted to mention it because it did float around a decent amount, but a lot of people
got shut down.
This. Kalen Kyle of all people dismissing the rumors, and that's someone who I think you can trust on this. So I mean, Mike, I don't know if you have anything on this idea, but Richie doesn't seem to me like one of those
No.
guys that would just give up on a project, especially he's got a 4-year deal here. I know it's tricky right now and he wants to play, and for Canada, they really need him to play, but yeah.
I watched that Huddersfield Nottingham Forest game yesterday, and I have to say the quality there is top notch.
Yeah.
Like both of their fullbacks are absolute class.
Mhm.
And I think about inserting Richie Laryea into a game like that with that type of what's at stake and that time of the game. I couldn't see it happening.
Nope. I agree.
And that's not a knock on Richie. Richie's a fantastic player. I just think that level of play might be a little bit better than maybe he expected. It was definitely better than what I expected out of those two sides. So I was really impressed by the quality overall of that both of those sides. And I think Richie has a little bit to go to kind of get up to that pace of play. So which is why I'm assuming that we don't see him as much as we want to. We don't see him in that lineup just yet. But I'm sure he's inching closer.
Also, those two starting fullbacks are loans, and the general consensus is they ain't coming back next season, whether they're promoted
considering
or
how
not.
they've been playing, I think
they're going to get recalled by their squads. So he's definitely in the wings, and you know, I said this on our spaces. I think I said this on our show that he had to know. I mean, obviously, everybody thinks that it's not going to affect them, and that, you know, well, you're signing this deal for next year, and they're like, sure, whatever, for sure. I'm so good, you're going to play me in 2 weeks. But he had to know. It's a setback, absolutely, but he made this move with both eyes open, and you know, if anybody is going to surmount a bump in the road, I bet on Richie Laryea every time. So let's go.
Yeah. Again, the wider concern for me is just the Canadian men's national team, because that's one of those positions that Canada's really not that deep at. But
yeah,
I mean, I think you still have to play Richie, considering he's out of, or even if he hasn't played in a couple months. Although I will say, Matthew Chouanier, watch that player at that right back. He's been so good for CF Montreal so far this year,
and his brother's really good for Forge.
Yeah,
like that family, they're ballers, man. And yeah, you know, of course we want to see Richie get playing time for this window, but this window is, I mean, it's not the toughest window that we've seen this men's national team play. And we're based where they are on the table right now. It could be a time where you can experiment with someone like a Chouanier or other players potentially at that position. You have the versatility where you can drop Buchanan back, or Richie Laryea has been training with Nottingham this whole time. Like maybe he's just good enough to kind of play his way onto the squad, and maybe that's the confidence boost that he needs, is getting back into that national team fold. But yeah, you're right. It's something we've talked about in the show quite often, is what does John Herman do with this upcoming window, because Richie Laryea hasn't been playing so often. And as a TSC fan, obviously that's tough to see. But I think, as Jeff, as you kind of said, and Mitch, you kind of alluded to, like, I think he'll be fine, regardless of kind of how this plays out. And I know that loan move was floating around. I don't see it yet.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of players and playing time, another bit of movement for Toronto FC this week is Luke Singh went out on loan, but not to whom we expected him to. The initial rumors were that he would join Pacific FC, especially in light of the Lucas McNaughton and Caden Chung signings. But he's going to FC Edmonton, which I mean, it's going to be a tricky one for him, because look, FC Edmonton is
suck. Yeah,
they're not great right now, but I think it is a good place for him to go, in the sense that he's going to have a pretty big role there and get a lot of opportunity to do what he needs to learn most, and that is defending.
And that's something Bob Bradley talked about. We asked him at training the other week about the move, and particularly it was posed TFC2 versus the Canadian Premier League. Like, why not send him to TFC2? And interestingly enough, he said Luke Singh kind of just needed to get out of here and go out on his own a bit. And to me, that signals they want to grow up in a lot of different ways. And I'm not saying he doesn't have the mentality to be a professional footballer at all, but there's, as we talked about, there's a lot of experiences and a lot of development that can happen when you are away at a different club, away from your family, all of that.
Absolutely.
So I think that's the biggest thing for him. And as you mentioned, Mitch, he's going to have ample
A lot of
opportunities
defending to
to
do.
defend. And hey, hopefully he comes back better for this, because I think the talent you guys can see, this guy on the ball is very, very good. In the air, he's very, very good. It's just positionally, it's not there.
Yeah,
And the way that he reads the
decision
game, in
making.
my opinion,
Yeah.
just wasn't there yet. So let's see kind of where it goes from there. I'm not writing him off just yet. I think this guy has a really high ceiling. Let's see kind of how this plays out. I wish him the best there in Edmonton.
Absolutely. He's going to get minutes. He's going to get minutes in a way that I don't think he would have got in MLS next. So yeah. And he's going to have a lot of responsibility because those other teams are going to be marauding the FC Edmonton net. So he's going. I mean, this is a very good move for Luke Singh, I think. So all like you said, all the best to him, and hopefully he figures it out. You know how to make those decisions and get his body positioning right and all of those things. Yeah.
Do you guys think there's anyone else who gets loaned out?
I'm trying to think.
I mean,
even, the roster.
Yeah, I mean that isn't in the starting 11. I think that's like the
yes
guy, right? Like,
yes, but not like I don't think that happens yet. Like I think that's something that they might consider during the summer months, perhaps when they get their Insigne and Criscito and all these guys in, and then
Throw me some names, Mitch.
I mean, if it doesn't work out and he doesn't cut, how high I am on him, but like a guy like DeAndre Kerr, like you want him to get minutes,
or Peruzza,
he's not getting, a guy like Peruzza. Those are two good examples. Obviously
Kamar Lawrence,
Kamar Lawrence, obviously Peruzza has to learn how to play that central attacking midfielder role as at the professional level. So
adjusting to that position takes some time.
But those are a couple of the guys who
it's going to be hilarious when Bob Bradley throws Peruzza out as a central attacking.
I'm going to do backflips. I don't know how to do one, but I will figure it out. Absolutely. I see those guys.
I know you have more names in the well.
Well, I could see again. He's been getting a lot of minutes, so maybe not right now, but like depending upon what they do at the midfield, like a Noble Okello, I think that's one of those guys who you just want getting minutes, regardless of where they are. Like that's another player of that sort. So those are a couple of guys, like a couple of those younger roster guys. Even a Luca Petrasso, like I know he had a big breakthrough game, but if he doesn't get, those minutes, then maybe you send him to join his brother at York United or something like that. We've been talking about a lot of brother combos recently. So.
Yeah, truth.
What about a guy who I don't know if we've talked about him yet on this show, but Kofi Thompson.
Right.
Kofi Thompson.
Kofi
Thompson. Yeah. That's, I mean, it's kind of forgotten about a little bit because he's kind of overshadowed there, but he's a guy potentially that could be a loan candidate if he doesn't get some opportunity here. And I think I liked what I saw out of him in preseason. So he's one, I guess, to keep an eye on as a potential loan move down the line. What did you guys make of Caden Chung and Lucas McNaughton? Was there anything that you could have made it out of them at that point in the game?
I love them.
Yeah, I'm mostly just rattled that I couldn't figure out who Mike was trying to allude to in terms of loan guys. I was trying to name all the young guys on the team so I get his guy. And
Did I get it right? Yeah. He doesn't give you too much. He's a good poker player, man. Jeez.
Yeah. I mean,
it's not a smile.
I thought Caden Chung's looked really. I mean, both of them. Again, it wasn't much time, but Caden Chung's a guy who. I think he will get more minutes as there'll be potential games where they'll want to bring out JMR at a certain point, especially at this young age. So I think Caden Chung's looked really solid and very solid defensively. Like I've liked that from him in the early games here.
Jeff, you're a fan, right?
Oh, I mean, I'm a big fan. I thought he looked great out there. And I was really watching. I thought he was pretty phenomenal. And Lucas is our Nick Hagelin. Hat tip to Charlie O'Connor-Clark. So I just want to see him bury a couple headers, and then he's my hero forever. But the bleached blonde hair, again, it's a bit too soon for anybody on TFC to have bleached blonde crop short haircut. By my accounts. So, I mean, but he's a lot taller, so I didn't really make that mistake more than once. They all look great. Okello, to me, is I really want this kid to figure it out, because that is such a secret weapon. I mean, especially in a Bob Bradley team, to have a 6 with that kind of physical stature. He could very well be the straw that stirs the drink. Did I say that right? Yeah, I think we're sitting on a big potential with Noble Okello.
You know what's funny is our Waking the Red colleague Tej Sahota had a Twitter thread about how he didn't think Noble was ready yet. There was a hilarious clip just for me where he's like, yeah, look at Noble get all the way back and not know what to do. And I was like, yeah, he got all the way back. When was the last time you saw a Toronto FC midfielder get all the way back?
Get all the way back, yeah.
So I was like, that alone sets him apart from the other options that Toronto FC have. So especially when we're talking about that transitional defending that's been such a struggle for TFC, like that's something Noble can really provide them, is just that ability to get back, and the youthful energy of him and Priso. Like they're going to need that this season.
I mean, you may be able to nutmeg him because he's like a giraffe out there, but you're not chipping it over him. You know what I mean? And if he can figure out how to do toe pokes, you're finished. I mean, that guy's going to own your soul. So I'm very, very excited. I think that kind of a physical stature doesn't come along often in football. And when you get that Yaya Toure kind of potential, I mean, that's amazing. So yeah,
it's not even just the stature too. This guy's a baller. Like he's so skilled. You see it often in training, and you see it in like when he's warming up. I mean, this guy can do things with the ball that someone who's like 5'5" can do. And I don't think he's been able to show off that finesse quite yet, but it's in his toolkit. And I think the more that he develops, the more that he goes on here, I think that'll start to show. And I personally think he's about maybe a year or two away from being quite ready to take that next jump. But this year will be important in terms of getting the playing time and getting the reps under his belt as he continues to develop and learn the game here. I think Ralph Priso, this is a guy I think is ready right now.
Yeah.
It's tough because obviously that midfield is Ozo, Bradley, and Paz, and who are you replacing at that point? That's the biggest question.
I think we all know the answer, unfortunately, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not calling for Michael Bradley's head right now. If Michael Bradley was making 500, 600,000, he'd be, in my opinion, a fantastic player, but he's making a max TAM, which it's tough to say that because he does so much for this club in terms of the intangibles. This guy's the captain, he's a leader, he's all of that, but I don't know if his play on the field right now warrants the max TM contract, and that's just my personal opinion there. And I'm sure a lot of people, I've seen a lot of people kind of voice that same.
Yes, the chat is exploding with anti MB4 sentiment, and so was the spaces that we repurposed into a podcast that you can now find on all your local podcatchers. I got to go pretty soon, but to me the question is Bradley a starter, or is he a last 25-minute player? And we didn't come to that conclusion in the spaces, because I can see advantages to both. Certainly having Michael sitting on the bench with his dad, reading the game, and then getting put in for the last 20 minutes to institute all of the notes that they've taken for the first 60 something odd minutes. There's that's sexy to me, but also having Michael start the game until he loses his legs and then bring in Ralph Priso or Noble Okello has its own advantages. So I do think there's a space for him. I just don't know if it's 90 minutes every game, in or out 24/7.
I think he needs to start just based on the player that Bradley is. I think he does better as the game kind of goes on. I don't think he necessarily comes in and adds a spark to the team. I think we saw a couple times last season he was brought in off the bench, and I don't think he was at his greatest. But for me, the biggest question mark in that midfield might just be, how the heck do we get the best out of Jonathan Osorio?
Yeah.
Because he looks like a completely different player with the men's national team. And how do we get back to that sort of Jonathan Osorio? Great that he scored the goal the first match. I don't think he had a good game on Saturday. A lot of people didn't, but I thought Osorio was not at his best at all. So I want to see if there's a way that Bob Bradley can kind of get the best out of Ozo, because it's in there. It's still in there.
Mhm. I think
Yep.
Graham Reed hits the nail on the head in terms of the MB discussion, which is I think they just need to pick their opponents to play him against. Like I think this
Yeah.
discussion is so highlighted because he was playing against the New York Red Bulls, which is a
Which
team
was
that
a
was
bad
set,
idea. Yeah.
yeah, it was literally a
Yeah.
team set up with two extra kind of inverted wingers who were meant to double up on Bradley and like take him out of the game. Like
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
their strategy was perfectly set up to destroy a player like Michael Bradley, and that's why
Yep.
this is so much in the light right now. And I think the other thing, like Mike Singh said, like intangibles are so important, and there comes a point when you take too many leaders off the field and the other guys have no idea what they're doing. And Michael Bradley is
Yeah.
such an important reference point for everyone else on this team. Obviously, eventually you want the Jonathan Osorios and those guys to step up and become those players because Bradley can't do this forever. But you don't want to take too many of those guys off the field. We've already seen between, Justin Morrow, some of those guys, even Omar Gonzalez, like obviously he might have been a bad reference point last season, but he was still considered a reference point as a leader. Like you can't take too many of those guys off the field, or like the structure's not there for these young guys, especially who are learning new positions. So I think that's an important thing to note. And again, why Michael Bradley still needs to start some games here and there. Yeah, let's wrap things up here. I think.
Yeah, I got a dip.
Last thing, just quick, is
Mhm.
tough match this weekend against Columbus. Don't expect
Mhm.
things to get any easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, true enough. True
Columbus
enough.
has been scoring for fun. I mean, they literally have
Yeah.
Zardes on the like
Delaran
they've
looks
created.
crazy.
Yeah, they've created this striker battle between Miguel Berry and Jossie Zardes that should be terrifying for the rest of MLS because both these guys are going to be incredibly hungry to score goals, and both of them have been scoring goals. So yeah, that's 1:30 on Saturday that they play that game. But yeah, let's wrap things up here. Thank you for joining us this week. Obviously, a huge thank you to Mike Leach for stopping by. Always good to catch up with him. Be sure, of course, to check out the new Twitter Spaces show we alluded to, the Tunnel Club, hosted by Mike Newell, which just joined the network. That'll be a live call-in show every weekend with rotating cast of guest hosts and you guys. If you want to get your thoughts in on all things Toronto FC, we'd love to hear from you guys. So make sure to go check that out. Follow us on the socials to check in on all of that. And thanks to all of you for continuing to listen and all of your support on behalf of Jeffrey Pineski. Wow.
Neski.
Yeah.
I like it.
That's what you get for talking over me 100 times.
Yeah.
Having
Neski.
their name properly. Yeah. Mr. Neski and Mr. Mike Singh. I'm Mitchell Tierney. Till next Tuesday.